Hello, my name's Andy Beaton. I'm an amateur astronomer who observes between the trees and streetlights of downtown Toronto. And I'm here once again to talk about what's going on in the sky for the next month. People who've heard my talk before will recognize the list, the big picture, key dates, the moon, planets, something in the deep sky, a double star, a variable star, and whatever's going on in the world of spaceflight over the next month. So starting with the big picture, if we go out tonight and it miraculously gets clear, we'll be able to see all our favorite summer constellations disappearing into the west, and a decent parade of big planets. We've got Saturn, we've got Jupiter, we've got Pluto, but you're not going to see it, and all the usual fall constellations showing up overhead. If we show up at 6 in the morning before our next meeting, we get a very different view. We're going to start seeing the spring constellations already showing up before dawn. And anybody who's awake at that hour is definitely going to see Venus, which is absurdly bright and completely obvious to anybody having a look at the sky. So we're at the time of year where the nights are getting longer. Good news for anybody doing any photography, needing long exposures. Twilight is ending at around 7:30 Eastern Daylight Time tonight. Starts again at 6 Daylight Time in the morning. By the next meeting, twilight will end at 6:04 Standard Time. Notice the change there. And starting again at 5:37 Standard Time in the morning. So yeah, we did get a shift in the clock coming up over the next month. Keep that in mind when you're planning your observing. So important dates coming up. November 13th is going to be the new moon. The moon is at apogee on November 6th and again on December 5th, that twice in the same meeting period. And then perigee, the closest point, on November 21st. As always, I will suggest if you're looking for an amusing project, take pictures of the moon, at both apogee and perigee, and compare it. If you have figured out how to take pictures of the moon using an Apple iPhone without getting a terrible bit of glare showing up, let me know offline because I'm intensely curious about it myself. Full moon, November 27th. Jupiter at opposition on November 3rd, Uranus at opposition on November 13th, and we've got the Leonid Meteors coming up on November 18th. So the moon, we love it and we hate it. First quarter coming up on November 20th, full moon on the 27th. Looks spectacular, but it's a nightmare for anybody doing any deep sky observing. Whoops, sorry. Last quarter, we got two last quarters this cycle, November 5th and December 5th. The new moon on November 13th. Now, November 19th, we have the lunar X happening. And for those that don't know, there's a pair of craters situated side by side. When those crater rims are illuminated at exactly the right angle, it looks like there's an X on the surface of the moon. Doesn't mean anything, but it's really cool. The lunar straight wall, Rupes Recta, on the evening of November 21st, gets illuminated at exactly the right angle. Another feature of the moon that looks really cool. So we have all the usual planets appearing or not appearing. Mercury will be appearing in the evening, low in the sky in the second half of the month. It's not going to be easy to see, but it's worth seeing. In the morning, Venus is unmissable. It's extremely bright and obvious, and if you have a telescope, you can check it out as it changes phases. Mars, however, is invisible this month. It's on the wrong side of the sun. We're not going to see it for this month and probably not for the next month either. The big gas giants are going to be the ones we love the most this month. Jupiter is visible all night long, dawn to dusk. On November 3rd, it's at opposition, which means it's on exactly the opposite side of the sun from us. It's, if not the closest it gets, it's close enough to the closest it gets. It's going to be a great time to look at Jupiter. It's fairly high in the sky. It's an excellent time to go and look for the Great Red Spot, which remarkably few people have seen. It's kind of a pale salmon spot rather than great and red, but it's worth looking for, and it's actually something scientists care about, keeping track of when it hits the meridian and tells us just how weather on Jupiter is behaving. Saturn, by the time twilight's over, it's almost straight south from us. Also worth seeing, a good tourist object for your friends and family who haven't seen it. If you've got anybody that you really want to show them the spectacular sights in the sky, those two planets are always top choices. I'm sorry we had this meeting tonight instead of 2 nights ago. I would have told people to take your telescopes out to the sidewalk for Halloween and give the kids a treat. As it turns out, it's cloudy anyway, but it's always a nice idea. Uranus and Neptune also very well placed this month. Uranus rises not long after Jupiter and is visible all night. It's in opposition on November 17th. Unfortunately for us mere mortals, there's not a lot to see on the surface of Uranus, at least with our telescopes, but the moons of Uranus are always a target for people with serious equipment. Neptune is kind of halfway between Jupiter and Saturn on the Pisces Aquarius border. Also interesting to see, it has a much more interesting moon than Uranus does. It's got Triton, which is in reach of most telescopes, and tracking it from night to night is probably a worthwhile project. The minor planets, it's kind of a write-off this month. Pluto and Ceres are both too close to the sun for us to see. Of all the other minor planets, I guess the only one even remotely in reach for people with top rank equipment and the ability to take long images, Eris is in Cetus. 18th magnitude, I guess, is doable. My telescope's getting nowhere near that, but I know people out there have better equipment than I do. So I always like to throw in something for people who want to go and look in the deep sky. The Perseus double cluster is the one I've picked this month because it's so obvious and bright and makes a really nice show off to your friends and family object. I've got 2 open clusters side by side. Here, hang on a second. There it is, that's what it looks like. 2 bright open clusters side by side in the sky. They're actually a few hundred light years apart, but they're both within a single eyepiece view for any wide-angle telescope or a pair of binoculars. Under dark skies, you can see them with the naked eye as kind of a fuzzy blob. Once you get binoculars, then you start seeing the stars. And it's actually a pretty good target for looking at in the city because stars do a good job of getting through all the light pollution and dust and haze that we live with. So if you're an urban observer, I would put it on my target list. So there we go. That's what it looks like again. There's some interesting red stars in amidst all the bright blue ones. Now, if you're a more advanced observer, there are 5 variable stars of note within these 2 clusters. RS Persei, AD, FZ, F403, and V403 and V439, all within Perseus. I'm going to pop back here for a second. When I look at this, I'm seeing all kinds of dark blobs around there, which, as far as I can tell, are not cataloged dark nebula, but I'm super suspicious about it. So if you're a serious observer, set up your camera, get some long-term exposures, and tell me if you think we're looking at dark nebula all around there. And if, well, you know, if you're an advanced observer, let's be honest, the double cluster is not that exciting or interesting. You can always just pop over to M45 when no one's looking and check for nebulosity. That's one of the challenge targets I've been looking at for a long time, and I'm never sure if I've seen it or I'm just seeing unclean eyepieces. Comets and meteors. We have meteors. We have the South Taurids coming up. Actually, we have the South Taurids going already. They peak on November 6th. We get about 10 per hour. The North Taurids also already on their way, peaking around November 13th, 5 meteors per hour. It's not really a lot, but if you're out there observing and you see them, they are said to be bright meteors. So, you know, trace them back to where they came from, see if you're spotting meteors from one of those showers. More interesting are the Leonids, 20 meteors an hour, peaking on November 18th, and more or less starting in a couple days. I mean, it's not one of the big ones. It's not the Perseids or the Geminids, but it's one where if you're under a dark sky, you'll see some real meteor action over the course of the night. The November Orionids are coming along mid-month and extending into December. That one, we're looking at 1, 2, maybe 3 meteors an hour. Not a big deal, but you know, if you're out there, you can always see them. Comets, nothing too spectacular. 2P Encke is the brightest. It is unfortunately really close to the sun right now and will be for probably the rest of the year. Keep it on your list for something to look for in the new year as it gets past the sun and starts showing up again. The other ones, C2021 T4 Lemon in Ursa Major, 103P Hartley and Hydra. The next two, P1 Nishimura and V2 ZTF, are only visible from the southern hemisphere. Last year, I wouldn't have bothered telling you about this, but I've discovered since that we have viewers from the southern hemisphere, from way south of the equator, who will have an opportunity to look for these comets, so I hope they get a chance. And then just over the 12 limit that I arbitrarily set myself, 12P Pons Brooks, 11.7 in Hercules. I think that one is for people who are obsessed with comets or have never seen one before and want to check it off their list. Also want to point out that solar cycle 25, solar activities on the rise. I think there were, recall something like 60 sunspots this week, so keep an eye out for solar activity. I don't think there's anything spectacular going on right now, but keep an eye on spaceweather.com for maps and up-to-date information. So we have to do a double star. Delta Geminorum is the one I've picked, also known as Wasat. It's a triple star in Gemini. It gets 2 exclamation marks in the Observer's Handbook, which is pretty good. 3 is you know, more spectacular than you can stand. 2 is just all right and beautiful. It's a yellow and red pair, 3.5 and 8.2 magnitude, 5.5 arcseconds separated. So any reasonable size telescope, probably 4 inches or up, you should be able to separate it. The third star is a spectroscopic pair with the primary, the 3.5 magnitude star. I don't know anybody who has a spectroscope, but I know some people do. I saw one at Starfest this summer. So if you have a spectroscope and you feel like trying to split out a triple star, there's a project for you. Now, obviously, I'm not going to do the sky this month without doing a variable star. I've picked R Canis Majoris this time, and what we have there is an eclipsing variable star. In this case, the star itself is a constant brightness, nothing too interesting about its star. What is interesting is it's orbited by a companion, and the companion gets in the way and blocks some of the starlight, and the brightness dims. It goes from about 5.7 to 6.3 magnitude, and it has a period of 1.1359 days. Now, what's interesting there is there are also subtle variations going on in the period, which could hint at another star in the system. The AAVSO, the American Association of Variable Star Observers, are the place to go for maps and reporting. I'll make one more observation here. A period of 1.1359 days is pretty fast. And I took a look at the chart, and it dips and rises pretty rapidly. What that means is it's hard to get good observations when you're doing it with the old Mark I eyeball. This would be an excellent target if you happen to be observing variable stars with a photometer. Stay tuned. So we have another variable star. This one I've been watching for a little while, Supernova 2023 IXF, or as we better know it, the supernova in M101. This one went off earlier in the year, and it's still steady around 14.5 magnitude. Once again, scientists are eager for your observations. Download the maps from aavso.org, make a careful observation and report it, and you will be a scientist. So coming up in spaceflight, not a lot of exciting stuff happening this month as far as launches are going on. Starship launches are on hold for environmental assessments and reviews. The last launch was a bit of a disaster. That's bad news for those of us who are interested in the Artemis program. Starship is kind of a key component of that, and it will be worrisome to see what happens if Starship gets delayed any further. OSIRIS-REx is back with asteroid fragments. Pay attention to the news, see what is coming out from reports there. The ISS is passing over in the morning until November 8th, and then from November 14th until the next meeting, it'll be passing over in the evening. Heavensabove.com for times and locations. And of course, we're in a golden period for infrared images. The JWST is sending us fascinating new stuff all the time. The most recent one I picked up, and I wanted to show people, there's M1 in infrared. If you go to the NASA website, they've got an interesting comparison of infrared and visual images of M1. So check that out, and keep an eye on other interesting stuff coming through the NASA pipeline. And I know you're wondering what to do if it's cloudy or you've eaten too much Halloween candy. Zooniverse.org has a lot of citizen science projects that you can do by your computer. Pulsar Seekers is a newish one. Gravity Wave Zoo, if you want to help in the search for gravity waves and understanding how they affect the universe. Backyard World's Cool Neighbors, you join in the search for brown dwarfs. And Blobs and Blurs, Extreme Galaxies and Clusters. Now, there are way more projects on Zooniverse.org. I'm sure if you have a particular love of one particular niche of astronomy, there's a project there for you. So I recommend you go and have a look and find something good. And that's it. Questions? There's always a typo in my presentation, so I'm sure someone will kindly correct something I've said. Otherwise, you can contact me here. Thanks very much.